I'm Lisa Haisha. Welcome to the Legacy Series. Today on my couch, I have Jodie Sweetin, and it's such an honor to have her here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yes, she was an actress on Full House. She's an author, and she's had a very interesting life with a lot of ups and downs, and we're going to learn all about that today and how you could handle your issues in your life with grace and ease. So welcome, Jody.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
I think you're such a great role model for so many.
Thank you.
Yes, and I don't know how often you hear that or not.
No, I not often, but yeah, not often. I think based on what people think they know about me, but I think that the person that I actually am is much different, and I think that I've come through a lot.
Absolutely. How old were you when you got into acting?
I was very young when I got into acting. I was probably 3.5 or 4 years old when I started doing commercials. I wanted to do it. I would bug my parents when we were watching TV. I would, look at the TV and tell them, "Oh, Mommy, I want to be a modeler." I guess that was my word for it. And, I loved performing. I was in dance classes and acting, and I did singing and, all that kind of stuff, and I loved it. I mean, I got out on the stage, and I came
When
alive.
you were young?
Yeah,
4,
when I
5,
was young.
6?
Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. And so I started doing commercials and stuff like that. I was about 3.5 or 4. And then I did a guest appearance on a television show called Valerie, which later became the Hogan Family. And it was the same producers as Full House, and that was how I got cast on Full House. So it was just sort of a series of very, very lucky events that got me onto that show.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you keep in touch with the cast?
I do. I actually saw them recently at Jeff Franklin's birthday party. He was the creator of Full House. I think there's a video out there now on several websites and stuff. We all got up and sang the Full House theme song.
Aww.
Or tried to sing it as best we could, because I don't think there's one of us that knows the complete lyrics. So
Okay, so fun.
Yeah, exactly. It was a good time.
That's wonderful. So would you put your daughter or one of your daughters in the television business?
I would. My experience doing it was really wonderful, but I also think it was pretty rare. I was surrounded by people on that show in particular, on Full House, who were very family oriented. The kids were definitely put first. Our education was put first. Our well-being, our happiness on set while we were working was really a priority. And we worked with a great cast of people, and not just the cast, but the crew as well. Like, I've stayed in touch with a lot of them throughout the years. So it was, I don't think that is probably the experience of every child actor. So mine might be a little bit different than a lot of people, but it was, it was something that was great for me. If my kids wanted to do it, I would support them in that.
So it was a good experience while you were doing it.
Absolutely.
So your parents didn't push you in it, and you weren't going, "I don't want to be here.
No,
I want to be a kid."
No, my parents never pushed me into it. I remember my mom saying often when I was little, if you ever don't want to do this, tell us. I don't know what I could have done like mid-season on Full House if I was, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know how we would have worked that out. But I always knew that my parents were supportive of me just being a kid. And they, and the producers on the show were very supportive of that. They let me go to regular school in the mornings and then come to work in the afternoon. So I did have a little bit of a, normal life, like in elementary school and middle school and stuff, which was great. A lot of kids that are in this business are completely removed from any source of reality and sort of given this unrealistic expectation of kind of what life is. So I think that helped me a lot, because I felt like, well, okay, I know that when this ends, which my family always reminded me of too, is this will not be forever. That when this ends, I have a life to go back to. I have normal friends. I have, a regular classroom and things like that. So I sort of knew what else was out there other than this little kind of entertainment
From
bubble.
what age to what age were you on that show?
I just turned 5 when I started the show, and I was 13 when it ended. So it was 8 seasons, 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you still had plenty of school.
Oh yeah. I started when I ended Full House. It was right when I was starting my freshman year of high school. So it's like a lot of change kind of all at once. But yeah, I still definitely had, 4 years of high school left. And I went to performing arts high school, so I still kind of had the performance piece in there.
So what was that like for you when it ended? Did you go through withdrawals?
Absolutely. I mean, this was...
Were you ready to leave, or would you go, I wish it was going for another year or two?
I wished it was going for another year or two. I mean, but I think I missed the people. I mean, this was, other than my parents and my blood family, this was the only family that I'd ever known. These were the people that I was with, for every day of my life, pretty much. All of my birthday parties, our holiday parties, like all of our big moments, deaths, births, weddings, we were all together. And so when it ended, it was like grieving the loss of a family and not seeing them every day. I knew I would stay in touch with them, but it's very different when all of a sudden you realize that sort of the routine and the life and the people that you know every day doesn't exist anymore. And, that's a lot to take on at 13. And, there was a level of sort of excitement, like, oh yeah, I get to just be a real kid now. I remember going to school all day and being like, wow, this is such a great experience. I don't have to leave and go to work. And, my friends were like, what? Like, completely puzzled by the fact that I was super excited to stay at school past lunch.
You didn't have to work all day.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So, but it was definitely... It was a huge adjustment in my life.
Did you do well in school?
I did very well in school. When I started Full House, I was entering kindergarten. I stayed in kindergarten for about 2 days. I tested out of kindergarten, went right into first grade. Always excelled in school. I love learning. I love school. I, always honor roll, and I got a scholarship to college. Went to a small private university. I love school. I sort of am one of those people, like, I would still be in school if I figured out what I wanted to do and just sort of had, endless amounts of money to take classes. I love it. I really do. So
then what happened when you finished and then you went to school, finished your show, went to school, then what happened? It's very well documented with your kind of downhill spiral and then building yourself back up again.
Yeah.
What was the moment where you thought, I'm going to try, math, or I'm going to try something?
For me, like, my thing started out pretty innocently. I mean, it started out like most kids in high school. It was like, oh, I'm going to drink, or like, oh, this will be fun.
So you weren't with the wrong crowd?
No, I wasn't with the wrong crowd. I didn't really get into like doing any kind of crazy stuff until like my early 20s. Most of the other things were what most other like normal high school kids were doing. They were drinking. I obviously had a problem with it. I never, drank normally. I was never one of those people that was like, oh, I'm just gonna have a few and relax and have fun. It was bad. But that it started for me right around the same time that Full House ended, and I think there was an element to it that I just wanted to be like everyone else. I wanted to to be accepted, to be liked, to be not what everyone was expecting of me, which was, some stuck-up little girl that was on television and thinks she's better than everyone, which wasn't who I was at all. And so there were, I remember I would think to myself, like, oh, well, maybe if I do this, they'll think that I'm just like them. Or, that I don't see myself as any different.
Yes.
So it was like trying to level the playing field. And instead of me, trying to show them that I was better than them, which I didn't think at all, like, okay, well, I'll be worse than them. And then, you know what I mean? Like, there was this very strange dynamic of trying to prove myself to be less than perfect. And yeah, exactly.
That you have failings and you're
human,
like,
look at, I'm a screw up too. You know what I mean? Right. And, and for me, I mean, the first time that I drank, I knew I couldn't drink normally. It just was not something that I was ever capable of doing. And, I fought that battle for a long time of trying to figure out, how to drink like a normal person. And it's just not, and it's not me.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. And it's interesting because, throughout my sobriety and getting sober and not being sober and kind of going up and down this road, what I realized is all the time that I was, telling myself that I wanted to, quote unquote, drink like a normal person or just, enjoy myself, that was never my goal. Like, my goal was never to be like that. It was just to always, go completely over the edge. And once I finally accepted that, I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to be like everyone else. It's just not who I am.
Right.
So.
Okay, so once you got out of that whole area of your life
Right.
where you're kind of finding yourself and saying, I don't want this doesn't work for me, and then you came over the hump, what did you do then? Is that when you wrote your book, or were you writing your book while you were...
I wrote the book. I actually I went through, all throughout my 20s, it was sort of an up and down period. I mean, I got sober the first time I was
Were
still
your
in
parents
college.
supportive of you?
They were incredibly supportive of me. They were always, they just wanted me to be happy and to be, who they knew I truly was. And I was hiding it and covering it up under so many layers of things that, it broke their heart. And throughout my 20s, it was, like I said, I got sober the first time I was 18. I had a few years sober, and then I relapsed, went to treatment, was out, in. And really, I was just, I think your 20s are a time that you're really trying to figure out, who are you anyway?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's really hard. And then, you add all of this stuff on top of it, and you're really kind of peeling the onion and figuring out, all of these things. And I wrote my book in 2009. And I had actually, and I talk about it in the book, in the preface of the book, while writing the book, I relapsed while writing it, like a few months in, and very briefly, and got back on and started doing it again.
Was the goal to help other people?
My goal was to tell my story, and I talked about that in the book too. In writing my book and writing my story out, and sharing some of the things that I've been through, if I help someone along the way, that's really the reason that I'm sharing it. There's no other reason for me to share the experiences of what I've been through and some of the darker things that I've been through, other than to maybe give somebody else hope that, these things happen, and it's possible to come back, and it's possible to start over and to do your life differently. So when you say it's possible to come back and to start over, there's so much work done on shame, and they say shame is one of the things that prevents people from really starting over. How did you deal with that? Did you suffer from any? Oh, absolutely.
Shame?
I suffered from a lot of shame. I had to learn throughout sobriety the difference between shame and guilt. And the shame is that I am a bad person, and the guilt is, I feel bad for something I've done. And trying to sort of separate the two out, and get as many things as I could over to the guilt side, where I can deal with the behavior and the problem and make the amends and make things right for myself, and no longer believe that I'm truly a bad person, but that I've made mistakes and I've screwed things up and I've hurt people, and I can go back and fix that and do it differently. And getting sort of untangled from that shame and from that belief, that core belief in myself that I'm a bad person and something's wrong with me, was hard, and it took a lot, and it took a lot of work and a lot of writing and a lot of really looking at myself and therapy and, all sorts. I was really determined and willing to do whatever it took. And, one of the things I talk about in my book is I was adopted at a very early age. And I think, in a lot of the reading that I've done about adoption and things like that, like as an adoptee, there is sort of just a base level of shame of something's wrong with me. I wasn't wanted. I was, I wasn't wanted by the one person who's supposed to want me, so therefore something must be wrong with me. And getting through that as an adult and finally letting go of that was huge. And that, I think, was really the key to me.
And you feel like you have let go?
Absolutely. I feel like I have let go. That was, I think the one thing that sort of kept me in this cycle and this pattern for a long time. And, once I had my own daughter, my daughter Zoe, and realized what it is to be a mom, and what it is to be a mom when you're capable of being a mom, and when you're not, and some people aren't at that point in their lives. Some people are, so deep in either their addiction or mental illness or whatever, they're incapable of that, and that it's not fair for me to hold on to somebody being incapable and wanting to give me a better chance.
And your parents were wonderful.
My parents are amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents are really, truly wonderful people. They really are. Like, I have an amazing relationship with my parents today. And
so what advice would you give someone who's watching this right now who's suffering from shame or guilt or just confusion of who they are, where they belong in the world?
We
Is there
all,
exercises that you did, any in particular, that you thought this really helped me?
one of the things that I've done throughout, getting sober and all of that is, being of service to other people, trying to get out of myself and to get out of my own self-obsession and thinking, constantly about me. You know what I mean? Like that's, oh, something's wrong with me. What about me? What's happening to me? And I feel bad about this. And if I can be of service to somebody else and in many different ways.
That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if there's anything like that I can do, that I can go out, whether it's sharing my story, whether it's being there for a friend, buying somebody on the street a cup of coffee. Like, I do little things like that just so I'm like not stuck up here all the time, because it's, it gets very ugly in between my ears.
Yes.
And
so what skills or tools do you use to stay,
to stay present.
And
I meditate in the morning. I do meditation. I do prayer. I try and stay very focused on where I am and what I'm doing at that moment. I can get very worried about what's going to happen next, or, oh my God, I can't believe that happened last week. And I forget where I am at that particular moment, and if I can stay really grounded and centered, the 3 or 4 times a day, I'll just kind of stop and be like, okay, here's where I am at this moment right now, and everything's okay. At this moment right now, I'm fine. I'm fairly healthy. My children are okay. And if at any moment I have to stop and be present and things aren't okay, I have to remember that they will be, one way or another. Like, there's never been anything.
And then do you journal in that moment?
I
get
do.
it on paper?
I
That's
do.
So powerful.
I write a lot. I do
Yes.
a lot of writing work. I have friends that I work with that, we sit and write together and sort of share our experience. And it really helps to share it with other people and make it, what I've found is that a lot of the thoughts and the shame and the guilt and the feelings that I have, when I share it with somebody else, they go, oh my God, I feel like that too. And then we kind of go, that's really silly. That's not who you are.
And we're humans.
Exactly. And
that's why we're here, to make mistakes and then
absolutely to make
recover.
mistakes, to learn, to grow, to do all that, to be able to share it with others. And I think part of that shame is that we feel so bad about the things that we think about ourselves, or the things that we think of ourselves to be true, that we're so afraid to share it with someone else for fear of what they'll think of us, that we keep it in, and therefore that shame and that guilt and whatever grows and grows and grows. And the second that you sort of pop that balloon and share it with somebody else and go, this is how I feel about myself, and somebody else says, yeah, I get that, I feel like that too, or this is what I think sometimes, or here's how I deal with it. It sort of lets all the air out of that balloon, and it no longer kind of grows and holds us prisoner by what we think it. We realize that it isn't true. It's we build up these things in our head to sort of keep ourselves where we're at, instead of letting ourselves grow and get bigger.
Yes, out of fear.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was ruled by 1,000 forms of fear for a long time in my life, and
which I find amazing, because you were already so successful by age 5, or
right?
Whatever.
Yeah.
So where does that fear come from?
I don't know. I think for me it was just
Did you feel you got lucky?
I felt I got
again,
lucky, that it wouldn't happen again, that I feared that I somehow just wasn't good enough, that I, afraid that I would lose it, afraid that I would get it, afraid, it doesn't matter what's going on in my life, I can find something to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm. Everyone can.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I've realized that I have 2 choices in my life. I either have fear or I have faith. And, if I have faith that I'm okay and that I'm on the right path, and that, things are unfolding exactly how they're supposed to be, then I'm fine. Then I have nothing to be afraid of. It's those moments when I lose that faith and that security and that sort of groundedness that I start thinking that everything's going to fall apart. And that, the Chicken Little, the sky is falling, everything's going to go terribly wrong, when in fact, all it's changed is my perception. All it's changed is what I'm focusing myself on. And when I kind of redirect my focus and sort of take a minute, meditate, get back to my centered self, it's a much different experience, and I can view the world in a completely different way when nothing on the outside has changed. I've realized, like, I can go throughout my day. The first half of the day, I can just be terrified. And then I kind of have my moment, get grounded, and I go, okay, I can't do this. Nothing else has changed except where I'm viewing the world from, and then everything's fine, And
Yes.
I kind of go, oh, well, this is so silly. I'm putting all of these fears out there, and that's all I'm seeing back, instead of, trusting the process and looking at, for all of the good things. And, I can find those just as easily as I can find the things to be afraid of.
Absolutely, we all can. So when you focus on the positive, your life will be more positive because we are our thoughts.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can get out of the shower
want.
and it's like, I can look at myself in the mirror one day and be like, oh, this is just terribly disappointing. The next day I go, oh, I look pretty good. Nothing changed except how I view myself.
Yes.
So, I that's a huge thing for me to remember, is that, where I'm coming from, either faith or fear, really determines how my life is going to be, how my day is going to be.
What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, my 18-year-old self. To my 18-year-old self, I would just say, slow down. Just slow down. Everything doesn't have to happen today. Probably till I was, 28 or 29, I just felt like I was always missing something. I've got to be, at this place, or talk to this person, or be with these friends, or like I'm missing something. And I think that sort of comes with age. I think every kid, especially, like later teens, early 20s, like you're just constantly out looking for, the excitement. And what I realized is, like, the more I slow down, the more enjoyable it all is. I'm not missing anything. In fact, the faster I go and the more I'm searching for something, the more beautiful stuff I miss on the way. And just slow down. It doesn't
there
all have
are
to happen.
so many studies in noetic science that prove that the more you put into a day does not make you more successful or happier.
Right.
Sometimes it's a lot less if you do half, because you could actually be more creative. So when you're putting something out, you're putting the great stuff out, not a bunch of junk.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You're producing.
Right.
You don't have time to meditate on it, or what am I doing, or what direction,
Right.
or to appreciate.
Right. And I think we put that on ourselves, a lot. I think especially in this country, the thought is that the more you do, the better you are. And
or lazy. Look what this person's doing. Why are
Right.
you lazy?
Exactly.
Why aren't you making this amount of money? Or why don't you have?
Exactly. Why
So,
aren't you doing all these things?
Yes. Especially in Los Angeles.
Oh, especially, and I have moments where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a half-hour nap, and I'm like, I can't take a nap. There's so much to do, and it's like I just need to like shut myself down sometimes and just remember to rest, and like, the world is not revolving around me and what I'm doing, and like everything's not gonna stop if I just hold on for a minute. And
That's a huge insight too.
Oh yeah, like
When you really get that, not just
Yeah.
say the words, but when you really get that.
Yeah.
If I have a sick day, or even pretend it's a sick day, the
Right.
world will survive.
Yeah, exactly. The
My
world will
career will not be dead.
Exactly. I put that pressure on myself all the time. Like, oh, I've got to show up for work, or I've got to show up for this, or my kids need this, or my And what I realize is I'm just further depleting myself, and then I have nothing available to give. The more I continually like kind of pump myself for energy, eventually I'm going to run out, and I get really sick, or I just am completely like off my rocker, cranky and angry and short fused. And, I've gotten better now at sort of sensing with myself. I've really gotten in touch with how I feel and how my body feels, how my mind feels. And, I can sense those moments now where I kind of go, something's off, and I need to stop, I need to slow down, I need to refocus. Because I know if I can get, too far in one direction or another, I really lose sort of my, my goal of like a peaceable life.
Well, what advice would you give to mothers or parents that their children want to be in showbiz?
I would say that it is not it's not as bad as you read, and it's not as good as you think it will be. You know,
would you tell them to be stage moms, to be protective, or would you?
You know, there's my mom was on set with me all the time. She was always present. She was always there, but she was never pushy and she was never obnoxious or demanding. But I knew my mom was there. I knew that I had someone there looking out for me. And, you know, like I said, we also had amazing, like, on-set teachers. And
but that
things
made
like
you feel good, having your mom regardless of...
Yeah, having my mom there, you know, there was a safety in that. But the problem is that there are, you know, there are parents out there that get their kids involved in this, that their children's safety isn't the priority. You know, the fame is the priority. And, you know, fame isn't everything. It's not, you know, it comes and it goes. And that was, like I said, when, you know, my mom would tell me all the time when I was young, you know, remember, this too will end. And then who are you? You know, and that's something that I've sort of carried with me throughout my life. There was a portion of my life where that was a huge fear of, like, oh my God, this is going to end. Now what? You know, and as I've gotten older, what I've realized is you know, this all will end. But who am I? You know what I mean? All of the, you know, the famous stuff will end. Money will end. Money comes and goes. People come and go, all of that. But who am I?
Who are you?
Oh, who am I? You know, today I'm a mom. I'm a friend. I am someone who enjoys I mean, I wake up and I enjoy my life. I enjoy my days. I enjoy the good moments and the bad.
How do you structure your days?
I work. I actually work in drug and alcohol treatment. So it's, you know, I get up and I go to work, but I have my kids, I share custody with their dads. So, you know, a couple days a week I don't have them, and then the other days I do, and I get them up and get them to school, which is usually, you know, sort of a controlled chaos. You know, trying to get two little ones to brush their teeth and eat their breakfast and put on clothes and pants and, you know, not scream at each other, you know, all within like a 40-minute period is rough.
Yes, but, I understand.
You know, yeah, and you're like, come on, we've got to go, we're going to be late. But, you know, I start my day with my kids, and we get out the door, we get to school, I go to work. You know, I try and have, you know, dinner with friends or you know, some sort of like time with people that I know are supportive of, you know, my journey. Sometime in the day, phone calls or whatever. And then, you know, I go home and I try and relax and just enjoy the end of my day.
Do you teach your children meditation?
I do. My kids actually love
That's
meditation.
wonderful.
I have these like Tibetan singing bowl, like meditation music on my phone, and you know, I listen to that before I go to sleep. And my kids will come in and say, "Mommy, can you put on the meditation music?" You know, or sometimes we'll sit and meditate with like a candle or something and sit there, and they love to do that. And
what a great gift you're giving them at such a young age.
It is. It's great. I try and, you know, especially my older one, she kind of, she's, you know, I am a person, I'm a little more even-tempered. I'm pretty, you know, pretty mellow with most things. My older daughter tends to kind of, you know, get angry real quick or get upset really quickly. And so I think like my biggest lesson with her is just teaching her to sort of slow down a little bit and, you know, take a deep breath. And is this really something that, you know, you want to get upset over? You know, and
do you see a lot of yourself in your kids?
I do, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I do for sure. And interestingly enough, the things that frustrate me probably the most in them are the things in myself. You know, just like all people that you come into contact with, the things often in the other person that frustrate you the most are the things that you don't want to recognize in yourself, and you kind of go, oh, that, you know, especially with your kids, you kind of go, oh, why do you do that? And you're like, oh God, I do that too. You know what I mean? And just trying to kind of learn from them and learn, you know, I think that our kids are our biggest teachers a lot of the time.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to parents in raising children, like based on your parents too, because you obviously have such a great relationship? What did they do right or wrong, and what did you take from them? Or because it's so tricky, especially in LA, especially if they want to be in entertainment business,
right.
And how do you ground them and really help them? Meditation is one of the things you mentioned, but
you know,
to
meditation,
have a sense of self.
Finding the things that they love to do. You know, when my older daughter loves art. She loves art. She will stay up drawing until, 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night, just drawing. And that's her outlet, And for my little one, she loves to sing. She loves to, she loves music and singing and all of that. So that's like her thing in the car. She likes to sing. And I think finding those things for your kids that are their outlet, their own thing, not what I want them to do. Maybe, I would, if they wanted to do karate or they wanted to do something like that, I've never done that, but if that was something that they were passionate about, wonderful. I think that for kids to find something that they truly enjoy, that is separate from their parents, that makes them feel important and valued and like they're accomplishing something all on their own that they want to do, I think is really important for kids. And I think that it's something as parents that a lot of times we don't do because we want them, oh, but you want to do this, you know what I mean? You want to be like mommy, or you want to do this kind of stuff. And I think our ego gets so wrapped up in it that we forget that these are their own little people having their own experience.
Yes.
And that
so you help guide them instead of controlling what they like and what they
that
don't like.
absolutely. My children, they, and I forget it sometimes because I'm like, well, they're mine. You know what I mean? Like I gave birth to them, they are mine. And sometimes I look at them and I look at their little eyes and their little face and I go, you're seeing the world out of all of that. And I have no idea what that experience is like for you. I can only be here to guide you and help you through that, but you are viewing the world all on your own. And
that's great advice.
Trying to remember that like these are little people. And
they're wiser than we know.
Absolutely.
They really know what they want.
They know what they want. They know what they don't want.
Yes.
And and to listen to that. Now, obviously, if what they don't want is vegetables, then we've got to eat some vegetables. But you know what I mean? Like, as far as like the things that they love to do, and the people that they are. I mean, I think that, and I know from seeing both of my children who are very, similar in a lot of ways, but very different. In a lot of ways, and they have been that way since they were born. They were who they were as babies, as infants, and they've just only become more of that, And it's a really wonderful experience and an honor to watch someone grow into who they are and figure that out, and to be able to sort of guide them through that instead of trying to mold them into who I want them to be.
Yes.
Because that's only going to be then one more layer for them to sort of discard and
yes.
uncover once they get to the age where they're trying to become independent and figure out who they want to be,
So what are you working on now? Are you going to get back into film, or are you working with...
I am hoping, I have a couple projects right now in the works for some TV stuff, which is exciting, and so the opportunity to get that back going again is really, really fun. But right now I work in drug and alcohol treatment, and I've worked in that business now for almost 3 years, and I love it. I get to go to work every day, and I see people grow. I see people come in at their lowest point, completely without hope, with just a little bit of willingness to do something different. And I see them change, and I see them grow. And the program that I work at, we're a long-term treatment center, so we have some of our clients that stay with us 6 months up to over a year, and to see people go through such amazing, huge, beautiful changes on a daily basis. It's like I get up and go to work, and I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I work with a group of people who are very like-minded, and we get to come to work every day and help people, and have fun doing it. And
how long does it usually take for someone before you start seeing the recovery?
It depends on how willing they are to do the work. I've seen people go into, getting sober, and they remove the drugs and the alcohol, and they're not willing to do any of the work on a deeper level, and they're just angry and resentful, and they're sober and they're miserable. And then I've seen people, come in, and within the first week they're jumping in and they're trying and they're doing everything that they can to try and do something different. And I think it's all a matter of willingness. What are people willing to do to change, and not just in the short term, but in the long term. What are you willing to do to grow? And I think that that's one of the most important things that I have learned in my life is growth doesn't just happen and then you stop. You have to continue it. Otherwise, you sort of slowly get back to where you were. And
so many wise words from you.
You know,
You have grown a lot.
It took a lot to get me here.
So that's wonderful. Obviously, it works, and it's just so admirable that you're sharing this with other people and helping them get to where you are today.
Yeah, I love it. And like I said, you know, if the one thing that I get to do is be of service to others, you know, I do it not only in my work but in my personal life, and I love it. And so if that's what I get to do every day, I am beyond blessed.
So, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be one of love and service, truly, of being able to give to other people, and for the people in my life to know how much I truly love them and appreciate them. And you know, other than that, I mean, I don't think that there's, you know, anything that I can write, that I can perform, that I can, you know, like, I think some people would want, you know, their legacy to be a, you know, a wonderful film or a book or, you know, something like that. I want mine to be, you know, the day that I'm not here anymore, for people to remember what it was like when I gave them a hug, or what it was like when I laughed with them. You know, those are the things that I think are really important that we remember. We don't remember the stuff. We remember the feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you feel it's important then, do you live each day of this could be your last day, where you express and say I love yous and give hugs
Absolutely.
more frequently?
Absolutely. You know, my mom and I always, when I was little, you know, my mom and I always said I love you, you know, all the time. And there was never a day that went by that, you know, I didn't know my mom loved me. I have a feeling there were days that she probably didn't want to see me because I was not a pleasure to be around at times, but I never doubted that she loved me. And
that's a great lesson to teach.
Yeah.
To really, especially in today's times, to those people who you love, reach out to them and tell them.
I do. I tell my friends all the time, you know, when I go out to dinner with my friends and I leave, you know, I'll call them when I get home or text them and go, I just want you to know how much I love and appreciate you, and that was really nice to see you and spend time with you, you know, or my parents, or, you know, my children. I always want them to know how much I value not what they do for me or what they give me, but just their presence, and that they're important and they are loved. And I think that that's sort of the best thing that you can feel, you know, is to just know that you're important to somebody and that you're loved by somebody.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This has been wonderful.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right.